Nigeria when she was a little girl, and I had gone and interviewed her family and gone to the village and everything. And I haven't looked at these in a while, so I'm working on this a few years. This one is called, it's kind of a series of linked stories, and it's memoir. Okay. I'm leaving Nigeria. I'm late for my flight, pulling my luggage from a cab idling at the curb outside the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos, Nigeria. I give the cab driver, an elderly Yoruba man whom I flagged down in a sweat-stained Panic on the road some minutes before, 2,000 naira for the ride, a steal. With fee prices set in stone here, every cab ride, DVD sale, and bag of groceries must be bargained. Upon hearing my accent, laced with an American staccato, the average cabbie in this position would have raised the fare by at least 50%, especially when I asked to be dropped at the international terminal. It's a mark of pride then that I got the local rate for this ride. It means that I passed, a crowning achievement of my journey here. Though I was born and raised in Albany, New York, in a lifetime of hearing my parents speak, all my cousins and aunts and uncles and grandmother, I can sound homegrown when I really want to. As the child of immigrants, many voices, languages, and cultures congeal in my identity, presenting themselves consciously and subconsciously, sometimes at random, depending on the environment. I've always wondered about this, having heard that my natural speaking voice has traces of African, Caribbean, even French undertones. All my life, I've longed to be born and raised in Nigeria, authentic as a plate of pounded yam, one of my favorite dishes eaten with a bowl of light soup. In truth, I'm much more like a bag of yam flour, bought in an African market in the Bronx, made from North American grown yams that are dried, processed, ground to smithereens, sold at an exorbitant price, and reconstituted in a pot of boiling water by someone hungry for a bit of Nigeria, or at least a reasonable facsimile. My accent is affected when needed, mostly when money is involved, or when seated in a large group of Nigerians gathered at a restaurant or watering hole. A short wire reporter greets me on my way into the airport through the sliding doors. "What airline, madame?" he asks, smiling. "Air France," I reply, slightly wary of accepting any help, though too flustered and tired to resist. I let go of my bags and he wheels them toward the check-in counter where an efficient-looking flight attendant takes my passport. He flips through the pages, peering through his glasses at my visa stamp and credentials. I note his slight smile, the neatness of his haircut and uniform, a refinement in his bearing that speaks of many travels abroad. He glances at my picture, then back at me, then again at the passport, staring just long enough to make me anxious. My appearance has changed little since I renewed my passport 2 years ago. What could be the problem, I wonder? "Madame Essien," he grins broadly, his gaze a bit too interested. "About yet?" I hesitate before responding. "Idiocon, fine," I answer cautiously, wary of becoming embroiled too deeply in a conversation in Ibibio. His name tag clipped to the bottom edge of his blue jacket is too small for me to read clearly. The surname looks like Uda or Ekpo or something of the sort, while his first name I think is Imam. He likely comes from Iquo B, my parents' place, or maybe Cross River State. He's trying to suss me out, to figure out my particulars. I could go the long route of explaining that my parents are from Iquo B, I was born and raised in the U.S., or I could just go the easy route and say I'm from Iquo B, which is really true, since Ibibio culture holds that a child is from wherever their parents are from. I wait for him to inquire, but he doesn't. After several tense moments spent staring obliquely at his computer, punching key after key, the man announces he cannot find my reservation. I must go upstairs to the ticketing counter. "But can't you search with the reservation number?" It must be a glitch, I think. Certainly my ticket is in the system. "No, you have to go upstairs," he says, more forcefully now. I'm speechless. Up until this evening, there's nothing I would have wanted more than to stay in Nigeria, maybe forever. Having spent the past 4 months working on a memoir about my late mother, interviewing her relatives and friends, traveling, writing, this place has become a critical landscape in my life. I don't really know who I'd be if I didn't have this place to call home. If I couldn't sleep in my mother's house or see my grandmother's face, I would have lost my mind a long time ago. But tonight, with all my bags packed and goodbyes said, I must get on a plane and leave. I finally stopped pushing back my departure date, finally accepted there are some loose ends to tie up in New York, where my life had been on hold for years before I ever considered leaving. "Can I give you the reservation number?" I offer, my voice pleading and desperate. He holds his hand up, interrupting me. "Madame Essien, please, you must go upstairs," he says, raising his arm, pointing impatiently over my shoulder to some place in the distance. I nod. The porter leaves my suitcase sitting unguarded at check-in and starts wheeling away my handbag. I protest, arguing that someone might steal it. "No, it will be safe," he replies, smiling. He reassures me and I acquiesce as we make our way through a maze of passengers, passing through a set of double doors to the stairs. "No elevator," I grumble, steeling myself for what is sure to be a long climb ahead. On the third floor, the porter pushes open the door to the ticketing counter. I inhale, expecting to fight through a long queue of angry, belligerent passengers whose flights have all been delayed or canceled, and the requisite shoving and shouting rumored to be helpful in solving any number of technical, mechanical, and human errors, most of which can't be helped in this Nigeria. It is here that explanations like, "There is no light, madame," or "The clerk has gone for a burial in the village, please come back tomorrow," or "The visa machine is not working today," are all taken as acceptable excuses for scuttling the most carefully laid plans. But to love this country as I do, one must accept these peculiarities as acts of God. But today, I vow, I will not accept anything less than a return ticket to New York. As God is my witness, I will fight any and everybody in order to fly out of Lagos today. But thankfully, when we enter the small air-conditioned room with 3 attendants standing behind a high counter, there's nobody in the line but me. The attendant one finger types my reservation number into his computer. He looks at the screen, scrolls down the page with his index finger on the arrow key, deliberating. "The ticket has been canceled. You're no longer in the system." He speaks matter-of-factly and yielding as he looks me in the eye. "Canceled? No longer in the system, but what does that mean? What is he looking at?" I'm too tired to process this information. "Should I show you the confirmation email?" I offer, surfing the web on my cell phone. I really should have printed it out, I think, kicking myself mentally. I pull up the confirmation notice in less than 60 seconds and wave my phone in the attendant's face. He's unimpressed, uninterested. Doesn't even glance up from where his eyes are planted on the screen. It is exactly this kind of situation I dreaded, being alone, having to fend for myself in this country when I decided to come here. "See? They sent me the confirmation. I can give you the ticket number." Finally, after a protracted silence, he speaks again. "The change was made," he says, "but the agent didn't link it to the ticket, so it was canceled. You were supposed to come here and pay." He looks at me suspiciously. "But I did pay," I shout, indignant. "This email is the receipt." The truth was, rather than take an expensive cab ride to pay in person at the airport, I bought a recharge card and dialed Air France's international number to give my credit card over the phone. I hate the Nigerian cash money system. Having to show up and wait in a long line for some efficient agent to count a stack of 1,000 or 100 or 50 naira notes by hand because the counting machine isn't working. I didn't want to deal with the drama, so I made an expensive call overseas. Though strangely, none of the international ticketing system have a reliable means of communicating with the Nigerian ones. Such that the in-person and cash rule still applies, even in Lagos. I recite the ticket number aloud while the agent ignores me. Sadly, I don't even have 1 kobo left in my bag to offer him, a little something for weekend, as they say. All my efforts seem in vain when suddenly an older, more official-looking gentleman materializes and mutters something in the agent's ear. He punches a few keys and addresses me again, more nicely this time. "It's okay. My supervisor said I can just issue it to you." I don't question this sleight of hand, especially since it didn't cost me anything. Thanking the agent profusely, I accept the printout he hands me to take downstairs. Back at the check-in counter, the attendant is busy with another passenger. There's some discrepancy with the ticket, and in the shuffle of papers that ensues, he gestures for my slip and passport. As he blindly punches numbers into his computer screen, he looks up every now and again with a slight smile. Finally, he asks the question. "Ituke Akwa? That is, are you from Akwa?" He finally asks what I've been waiting to hear. The only way to ascertain whether I'm from Akwa or Cross River or born and bred American here visiting family is to speak in the vernacular. However, it's misleading, since this phrase is one of a handful I have learned growing up in upstate New York. I chuckle, amused at the irony. "Why are you laughing? You don't know Akwa," he says smugly. I let him savor the moment, head swelling, his body virtually levitating off the ground, while I figure out exactly how to floor him. Meanwhile, the porter to my right watches amused. Julio, I respond defiantly, naming the town where my parents are from. He raises his eyebrows impressed. This could go one of two ways. Either he will cease prodding, satisfied, or the questions will continue and eventually exceed my limited understanding of Ibibio. Blessedly, he switches back to English and asks the porter to place my suitcase on the scale. It is a few kilos overweight, but he excuses the surcharge with a wave of his hand. After all, we are from the same place. Do you have any hand luggage, he asks. I say yes, and he hands the porter an Air France sticky tag to wrap around the handle of my bag. With a few final keystrokes, the attendant hands me back my passport, boarding pass, and luggage claim tickets. I breathe a sigh of relief at having escaped another interrogation. I want to thank him, but struggle over which language to use. English is fine, of course, but we're from the same place, so Ibibio would be better. Am I asking for trouble? Sasan, I say finally. The word hangs in the air like a dare egging him on. He nods, a question forming on his lips.
Fabulous journey you just took. Thank you so much. Give her another